will and wider over the past few years. People have said they're a bit uncomfortable in talking about the racial and economic segregation results from exclusionary zoning. And
Mic
I've
check.
heard from some people
Mic
saying, is
check,
this
mic check.
necessary to discuss? And I do believe it is. As we know, many local news outlets have completed a series on the origins of single family zoning. And just yesterday, Vox published a really informative piece on America's racist housing rules and how they can be fixed. So I encourage people to read that. I've also consulted with the Urban Displacement Project and professors at the UC's Othering and Belonging Institute. And the evidence is overwhelming and unequivocal that these types of exclusionary zoning policies produce racially exclusionary effects. And their recommendations are to address our outdated zoning laws. And at the top of their list of the Othering and Belonging Institute's recommendations for policy solutions is to address our single family zoning laws. Now, numerous scholars have studied this issue on housing affordability, and the vast majority of them state that we need to fix our zoning laws if we want to address affordability, racial justice, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I have to reiterate that it's my strong feeling that it's not only something that neighboring cities have to fix, but we have to look into the mirror as well. So on to what this policy proposes to do. As you may know, as you walk through my neighborhood in the Elmwood, there's some beautiful bungalow courts, fourplexes or duplexes that are currently illegal to build in these neighborhoods. I've heard from children or parents who say they want to duplex their house so their kids can live with them. And I don't understand why we wouldn't allow that. We think about our vice president grew up in a duplex in Berkeley. So why would we not allow that to happen in all parts of Berkeley? I want to have a little Kamala Harris be able to grow up in our community. Also over the past few years, I've gotten to know so many young people who've relayed their struggles with finding a place to live. And these are also people who have grown up in Berkeley. So, when I hear people talk about that this is about tech workers, my view is that they really need to sub out that phrase and say younger generation of people, because that's my belief. That's the intent of this item. I also want to highlight that our city is not going to be an anomaly in addressing this issue. Every city is going to have to do this. We're just getting a head start. In case you don't know, Berkeley has to zone for approximately 9,000 units in our regional housing needs allocations. While this minute, and I do believe this is an incremental change to allow up to 4 units in our city, it's likely just going to be a drop in the bucket. And we need to take an equitable approach to ensure that the entire city is pitching in to meet these new numbers. Now, I just want to be really clear that we all know low-income families are struggling to live here. Families are struggling to live here. All, low-income, middle-income families, homelessness. We can see on our streets, people are unhoused neighbors. And our very own 1,000 person plan in how to address homelessness in our community told us if we want to address homelessness in a meaningful way, we have to address our land use policies.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Drasty. We're hitting 5 minutes. I'll give you a couple sentences to wrap up. Now take it home.
Okay, I'll wrap it up. Only a couple more things to say. So our item has incentives to address affordable units and ensure tenants aren't displaced. This gentle density of up to 4 units is the way to do this. I fundamentally believe that banning certain buildings in some parts of our city as opposed to other parts of the city is not only bad policy, but it's bad for affordability, climate change. And I understand there are people who disagree, and that's okay. We can still listen to each other's opinion. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is a start of a conversation. And I want to thank you all for being so interested in this. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Councilmember. We'll take it to the committee now for opening questions, and I'll take the liberty of jumping in here. Well, and thank you for this proposal. It's being celebrated by planners all over the country, really, and there's been a lot of discourse and literature recently, especially noting the role that the city of Berkeley plays in this issue as truly the home of single-family zoning in this country. And there are conversations to be had about the intents of that zoning, but what's very, very clear is the effects that it's had. And I think there's a powerful role for a city such as ours to play in setting a new standard for planning all over the country. But while it's being celebrated, we have received and heard a number of concerns from members of the community about the changes that a proposal such as this would bring. And I want to dig into a few of those and help sort of see how they fit together. One in particular that I know we've received a number of emails about is concern that this proposal would result in the demolition of rent-controlled housing. My understanding is that really that's already addressed by our existing demolitions ordinance. But Councilmember Droste, as the author, can you speak to that concern?
Yes, I'd be happy to. And I'll just add that, I really want to thank Mayor Arreguín for being so helpful in helping to craft some of this language. Well, first of all, under SB 330, I spoke with a member of Senator Skinner's office yesterday, and they said that it's very clear that they don't want the destruction of rent-controlled units, but we also made it very explicit in this item. So we spelled it out. So even, if it's not allowed under state policy, local policy, and then we added additional provisions. So, we do not want to see demolition of subsidized affordable units, inclusionary housing, Section 8, or units subject to the rent stabilization and eviction for good cause ordinance. We also have expanded in permanent tenant protections pursuant to SB 330, but not limited to increase relocation payments and conferring right to return and relocation benefits to tenants not covered under Berkeley's rent stabilization ordinance. We also prohibit the demolition of existing tenant-occupied properties, and have even more provisions. So that I feel very confident that those concerns are covered.
Thank you. And I noticed in the supplemental that just went out, it's like a bulk of the redlining, no pun intended, in the revisions, are really under the subsection on anti-displacement, affordability, and design considerations. I see a new addition here specifically prohibiting ministerial approval of projects in buildings if there was an Ellis Act eviction during the preceding 5 years, or verified cases of harassment or threatened or actual legal eviction during the immediately preceding 3 years, which I want to really appreciate. I think there's a lot of fear that proposals such as this, will lead to rampant speculation. But I think we're making sure that the Planning Commission has the scope in the referral to really build in preventive measures to ensure that the outcome here is affordability. The outcome is making sure that the city remains and continues to be livable for its residents, and that's what neighborhood character is all about. But I want to dig into that a little bit too, and ask for your thoughts on a number of the emails we've received. Describe this proposal as a tool of gentrification, are really concerned that the new housing that would be built would not be affordable, which is a legitimate concern, of course. But when we're talking about single family homes, there's nothing less affordable by design than a single family home. But there's a particular focus on an absence of deed restricted or below market rate units that could happen in these projects. And so something I'm thinking about, right now our current on-site affordability requirements only kick in at 5 units, and just given space limitations on lots, most of the upzoning conversations around single family zoning, this missing middle, kind of really focus on that sort of 2 to 4 block. But could you explain for us what affordability by design really means. I mean, how would this new housing be more affordable than single family homes are currently? And is there, I think there's a new amendment in the supplemental that I'd ask you to walk us through that looks like it would create a potential path for deed restricted to 80% AMI units as part of this proposal. If you could walk us through that amendment, that'd be appreciated.
Sure, thanks. So this was always part of the proposal, just to clarify. I know some people were saying, what about affordability provisions? This is always part of it. We really look to Portland, for instance, who just, they were able to have an affordable density bonus that they were able to incorporate into their zoning. So that's something that we looked at. And also we added another provision or option, right? Because the idea is that we want to have maximum flexibility. As I said, this is the beginning part of the conversation. So we want to put everything on the table for the Planning Commission to consider. So we also added that, that we were interested in further zoning incentives in exchange for capturing additional affordability in the form of fees or units, including waiving or increasing certain lot development standards. So again, that's just another way to get at some of those subsidized units. Now, in terms of the naturally affordable housing question that you posed to me, according to the US Census data, newly missing middle housing like duplexes and quadplexes more often houses middle and lower income families in Berkeley, while single family homes, no matter what year they're built, are exclusively higher income. Additionally, in Portland, we've seen that displacement pressures ease when you have policies such as this. So that is what we're getting at, is creating this naturally affordable housing. I know you are able to access a duplex. Oftentimes, a unit in a duplex, a home in a duplex is always going to be less expensive than a single family home on the market. So that's what we're getting at with this.
Appreciate that. Thank you. That's effectively my time. The only other thing I was going to poke at was helping kind of illustrate the the role that this plays in the housing element, and really just how long and immersive of a process we have ahead of us. But I'll hold that for now. That'll do for me. Councilmember Hahn, how you doing?
Good, thank you. So first, I just want to thank the author and co-authors for continuing to keep this important housing concept before us. As the background clearly points out, Berkeley was the first, and it's factually correct, Berkeley was the first city in the country to adopt single-family zoning, and it was coupled with laws that excluded people of color. And the vestiges of that original coupling remain today, enforced not by explicit discriminatory laws, but through economic exclusion, which is strongly correlated with race, to much the same effect. And I think that the word exclusionary maybe had a different meaning 30 years ago. People thought of it as, actual laws overtly discriminating against different groups for the color of their skin or their religion or whatever it was. And it can be a little confusing, because I think the word exclusionary is now being used a little differently to mean that it has exclusionary effect. And I agree wholeheartedly with that. And I think the terminology, is sometimes a little hard for community members who've been in these conversations maybe for more than a few decades to kind of make that shift. I think that bringing up to fourplex missing middle housing into all neighborhoods in Berkeley is absolutely one way to at least undo a little part of this, right? It's not the whole solution, but it certainly can undo a part of it. One of the things I like best about the whole missing middle concept, and I want a big shout out to Berkeley's own Karen and Daniel Paralek of Opticos for their extensive work to articulate and develop this concept. And I really encourage people to go look at their websites. is that the addition of missing middle housing to existing residential neighborhoods is likely to avoid the kind of backlash that we saw in Berkeley in the 1970s, when buildings that were out of scale with the existing residential neighborhoods were slotted in and provoked a reaction that I think probably went further than even those people who were involved in those movements would realize. And honestly, I wish that this vision of missing middle had been available and well articulated at the time, because I think it strikes a perfect balance. And I think that people might have not reacted quite so completely at the time if they'd had this really lovely concept before them to consider. So the Parallax have added material to their website in the last year that really emphasizes this point, stating that the central idea of missing middle housing is that it is compatible in form and scale with detached single-family houses. And I'm quoting, low-rise buildings with front porches or stoops, front or rear or shared yards, and generally more light, air, and open space. And that's why I was enthusiastic about this vision when they first shared it with me a couple of years ago, and why I continue to support bringing missing middle housing to all Berkeley neighborhoods. It's something that we all endorsed when the city council, when Councilmember Drosty had an item before us a year and a half ago. And we've all said yes to this, and that includes me. So I do have some confusions about how this item fits in with our previous referrals, both in substance and in the process. And I have a number of other questions that I want to ask. I was not involved in the creation of this item, and I appreciate your patience as I try to better understand various elements. And I just want to be very clear that I am past the question of whether missing middle is a good idea. It is. And I am in full support of bringing it more robustly to our community. But our job here in this committee is to grapple with details of an actual policy. And I think that's always more complicated than grasping a concept, although I know there are some people in the community struggling with the concept still. But I think our job here is really to get down into the details and really make sure that what we're doing here is what we intend to do, and that we thought through, all the different, the things that we're trying to incentivize and the things we're trying to disincentivize. And are we capturing those correctly in the actual proposal? And I'm just asking and hopeful that we can take the time to do that thoughtfully here in the committee and transparently, so that we can make sure that the community is brought along in understanding really what we're doing here. So I've taken up some of my question time with a statement, but it's my first opportunity to speak on this. And I do have questions, but and I have some comments and suggestions. But Chair Robinson, we do have a lot of people waiting, and I'm fine asking my questions later. And I'm wondering if maybe we should go to public comment. It's up
That's
to
a brilliant
you.
plan. Perfect.
Yeah,
No, that was 5 minutes.
And then I'll still have
Excellent.
more.
Perfect. And knowing that a couple of the committee members have a hard stop, so I want to make sure that we're able to have exactly that in-depth conversation. So thank you so much for your comments. And now we'll move to public comment on this item. If you would like to give public comment on this item, please raise your hand. There we are. And given the abundance of, oh, wow, that number is still climbing. Given the sheer abundance of speakers, comments will have, members of the public will have 1 minute each to give comments. Thank you, Sarah. Perfect. Here we are. All right. First up, we will hear from Julia Cato.
Hello, thank you. I wanted to first of all give you a statistic that the city said that in 2018 to 2019 there were 3,754 vacant units in Berkeley. which lessens the sense of urgency in some way if we could deal with those empty units. What I propose now is to add to this legislation 2 points. One, in order to avoid really detrimental effects to the community, that we prevent speculation by making the provision that anyone who builds these fourplexes or engages in this policy has to refrain from selling for a period of 7 to 10 years. Just to get rid of the kind of speculators.
Thank you so much for your comments,
descend.
Julia. Thank you very much for your comments. We'll hear next from Michael Katz.
Hello. I'd like to acknowledge the good intentions here, but I urge you to not advance this for several reasons. First, you've heard the Brown Act concerns about today's meeting and the technical issues. That's a microcosm of bigger procedural issues. The measure as written doesn't ask for discussion by the Planning Commission. It asks for a specific result from the Planning Commission. That's a microcosm of a still bigger procedural issue. This is a really big change, and it's very strange for it to come up after a high turnout election. This should really be on the ballot for voters to consider before it goes anywhere. And on the substantive issues, as a proud Berkeley progressive, I'll just observe that the people at the state level pushing these kinds of measures keep talking about affordability and diversity while undercutting both. There are no explicit protections here for rent stabilized units. And this would destroy diversity by demanding that the whole city look the same. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Michael. We'll hear next from Virginia Browning. Here we are.
Okay, I really appreciate what Sophie Hahn said. I just found out about this late. I've been doing other important stuff, so sorry if this sounds disorganized. I support the quadplexes. I don't understand exactly how it's related to the exclusionary zoning because I read 2 different proposals. Here's what makes living space livable everywhere. Open courtyards to streets, pocket parks, little bits of green, trees, big trees, small trees, shared gardens, things that people can see when they walk by, relationship to the streets. Now, the details that I found lacking in here were explicit requirements for affordability. And also it vaguely says 4 units, but when you read the details, it says or more. So if we're talking about 4 units, then let's put it in the details there. So I did think the details were lacking. I think I agree with the people that say that it doesn't, the people that are redlined now are going to get redlined more with this. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your comments, Virginia. Next, we'll hear from C. Shamban.
Hi.
You should be able to speak.
Yeah. I have a few comments, and one of them is that there's no guarantee that the housing will be built and no real protections against speculation. And wondering about rent control. Is there anything in there to prevent the developer raising the rent after, maybe a year or 2? And where, if this is being built, where will the existing tenants go in the meantime that they might be forced to leave in order for the renovation or the building, but where are they going to go in the meantime so that there's something real about having the first right to return, assuming that that's a part of it. And the other question is, why does there need to be a displacement risk analysis to mitigate negative externalities? I thought the whole reason for this was to develop low-income housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. We'll hear next from David Blake. David Blake, you should now be able to speak. David Blake, talking is, there we go, we got you.
Hi, I used to be on the zoning board. I used to be on the rent board. I'm glad to hear you're talking about land value increase capture, because that is at the heart of what you guys are doing. So I hope that you recognize that the starting place for a mitigation fee for low-income housing, this is putting in place, we now have. So I want to remind you, as I've heard someone else say, that the in lieu fees only pay for a 20th of the cost of building a new unit. And the whole problem is that we had in the 80s and 90s and 10s, zeros rather, was that whenever the market was going great and houses were being built, the council would say, this is a great impetus for getting more housing built. We're happy. We're not going to mess with it. We're not going to change the in lieu fee.
Thank you so much for your comments, David.
They would say, we can't interfere now, or we'll just cut down housing.
The speaker's time has elapsed. Thank you so much for your comments, David. We'll hear next from Patrick Sheehan.
You got to say two.
Hi, there's two of us here. So this is Kathleen Quant.
Hello.
The Quadplex proposal puts 100% of the power for housing in the hands of developers whose interests are 100% for profits. The 2,400 new units on the market in the last few years did not make anything in Berkeley more affordable. Allowing quadplexes anywhere would invariably lead to spec developers buying homes, tearing them down, maxing out properties with 4 units with unlimited bedrooms. Affordability would not be addressed without factoring in the mini dorm effect of 2 to 4 to a tiny bedroom in a house of a dozen tiny bedrooms. If one calculates the cost of redeveloping expensive R1 properties, land demolition planning, etc., you get very expensive rental or condo properties, which is clearly not addressing the affordability issues. Developers are the elephant in the room, maxing out these projects. They're not homeowners, they're the developers that are going to ruin this.
Thank you so much for your comments. Were you both hoping to give a comment?
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. I'll allow it.
The language of the proposal confuses and obfuscates the zoning code, calling by right ministerial and FAR for zones which do not use FAR, rather than understood terms such as height, setbacks, and lot coverage. Ministerial means no notification or right to comment or appeal development projects. The city has already engaged a planning consultant to revise the zoning code called ZORP, which is overseen by a committee composed of members of ZAB and the Planning Commission. This proposal constitutes an end run around the current process to address zoning issues and consider revisions. Worse, does nothing to create affordable housing, rather a gift to developers by deregulating developments of 4 units without restrictions on the number of bedrooms. The proposal is another example of granting extraordinary benefits to developers while excluding the public from comment and not requiring affordable housing to which the city is required or is entitled. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Patrick.
Mini dorms.
Thank you both. We'll hear now from Aaron Eckhouse. Aaron, you should now be able to speak.
Hello, thank you. My name is Aaron Eckhouse. I'm the Regional Policy Manager at California YIMBY, and my mother grew up on Cragmont. I'm very excited about the steps that Berkeley is taking here to reverse its legacy of exclusionary zoning and to promote more diverse housing types and neighborhoods across the city. I believe this can be an important step forward for Berkeley becoming a more affordable, inclusive, and livable city. It's not the be-all end-all, it's not the one weird trick to solve our housing crisis, but I do think this can be a meaningful step forward. I've been thinking, as Vice Mayor Rossi mentioned, about how the Vice President of the United States grew up in a Berkeley duplex and was therefore able to attend Berkeley public schools. We know that where children grow up has huge effects on their life trajectories. Berkeley has so much to offer people, but our housing policies are excluding people from those opportunities. Legalizing fourplexes and other small multifamily housing types would help open Berkeley, everything Berkeley has to offer, to more residents, and will give me greater hope that I myself might be able to start a family of my own in Berkeley. I hope you'll advance this policy. And
Thank you so much for your comments, Aaron. Your time has elapsed. We'll hear next from Josh Geyer. Josh, you should now be able to speak.
Yes, thank you. So I'm calling in support of this quadplex policy. I think that we should allow the same zoning that currently exists in South Berkeley to be expanded to North Berkeley and the Hills. I'd like to respond to several mentions of kind of speculators and developers as these kind of outside our community, shady entities that are profit driven. I'm wondering whether the callers know that what these developers produce is housing. It's housing for people in our community. It's amazing to me that people claim the label of progressive and yet oppose progress. We know that that single family zoning is a tool of segregation and exclusion. If you're defending the status quo, that is what you're defending. If you want Berkeley to remain as diverse as it is or increase its diversity, the only answer is replacing single family with more housing. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Josh. We'll hear next from Matthew Lewis. Which one? I guess we'll see.
Can you hear me?
That one. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, thanks. My name is Matthew Lewis. I'm a Berkeley homeowner, a 10-year Berkeley resident, and 20-year resident of the Bay Area. I'm here to support the effort to legalize the kinds of homes like fourplexes that were legal to build in Berkeley until many of the folks on this call and their predecessors made them illegal with the neighborhood preservation ordinance. While it won't solve all of our housing problems, it is a crucial first step to bringing an end to Berkeley's long and ugly history of acting at social justice while benefiting from the spoils of white supremacy. The voices of opposition to this proposal have dominated Berkeley discussions of housing for 50 years. Those voices are the reasons we find ourselves in the predicament we're in today. Their complaints are not about democracy. Their complaints are because now they are losing. The majority of Berkeley residents support the effort to build more homes, support this effort to end exclusionary zoning citywide, and to make it legal to build the homes that people like Kamala Harris grew up in Berkeley, and we can't wait to see that happen again. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments, Matthew. We'll hear next from Igor Tregub. Igor, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, everyone. I am speaking as an individual today. And first, let me preface this by saying I did not get a chance to review the revised item that was just posted, but I did have an opportunity to speak with a few of you yesterday and feel much better after speaking with many of you. And so speaking to Mr. Geyer's point directly, kind of my two personal red lines is one, to make sure that this does apply in all of Berkeley, particularly including areas that were part of that sad history of exclusive and restrictions. And secondly, from my time on ZAB, making sure that tenants are protected from evictions that happen due to this through no fault of their own. I encourage you to continue working with communities, including Berkeley and WACP, Friends of Adeline, Berkeley Tenants Union.
Thank you so much for your comments, Igor.
This soon. Thank you.
Time's elapsed. Thank you, Igor. We'll hear next from Chimmy Lee. Chimmy, you should now be able to speak.
Thank you. Hope my voice holds. Yes, I haven't read any changes, but I just want to reiterate and hopefully, as for the sake of equity in this proposal, the three proposals that it's on my emails to you. The one required that at least one of the units in the development be permanently affordable to low-income tenants. 2, require that the proposed housing development not require demolition or alteration of any rent-controlled housing. The existing proposal already has a similar proposal with MR units. And 3, require that the proposed housing development not require demolition, or alteration in any way that results in the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for any unit that is old enough to qualify for rent control under the Costa-Hawkins. This will allow the existing units to become rent control when additional units are built on site. Hopefully, these are the same changes that you put in, which I haven't read yet. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your comments, Jimmy. And good afternoon, officially, everyone. Next, we'll hear from Thomas Lord.
Hi. Hello. Yeah, there's so much to speak to here, more than a minute can allow. So I'll focus on. I heard Councilmember Drost say that she expects this item to result not in any immediate action, but in years of staff time and commission time and things like that. Listen, wake up. You're in a pandemic emergency and a climate emergency that requires radical adaptation of our society. And you're talking about putting all those city resources on this nonsense for years. You're out of touch. Aside from that, the memo and the discussion here is worthy of like a whole semester seminar looking at like the race washing, the greenwashing, the false accounts of history, the conflation of correlation with causation. It's such incredible, incompetent, ahistoric garbage. Let it die. Just let it die.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lord. Next, we'll hear from Elena Auerbach.
I would second that completely. Council members, who needs housing in Berkeley right now? Those living on the street, in their cars, in encampments, very low and no income people. There's nothing in this legislation. I know there's something potential affordability. There's nothing. We need affordable housing, very, very affordable housing. The scenario this brings to mind is a Black family that has lived in Berkeley for generations, likely living in South or West Berkeley, and COVID has put them on the edge of being able to afford their home. Developers come in knowing that they can quadruple, so they double the amount that they were willing to pay pre-COVID. They demolished that house, and now they put up 4 market rate units. Unless it's 75% or more affordable housing, this makes absolutely no sense. Unless, of course, you're a developer in a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. That's what this reminds me of. I would ask, where did you get this idea, Councilmember Drosty? I wonder, is there a developer behind this? What problem exactly is this measure solving? Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. Appreciate it. And next, we will hear from Becky O'Malley. Becky, you should now be able to speak.
Here's the unmute. I would like to start by saying that I am seriously offended by Laurie Drosty, who is my neighbor, attempting to race on me and on my age peers. I am 81 years old. I lived in Berkeley for the first time in 1958 when I was a student. I've lived here 40 some odd years since then. And I have devoted most of my life to trying to achieve racial equity. And the idea that a twerp like Laurie Drosty offends the good Berkeley people of my generation leaves me unable to speak to the substance. I will endorse the substance of what most of the previous speakers have said. One thing I would point out is that among the founders of Neighborhood Preservation Ordinance was Lonnie Hancock, who is no racist. And I'm sure that if she had more than 1 minute to speak, she could explain that to you. But let's take this blackwashing out of the discussion.
Thank you for your comments, Becky. To future commenters, I would just note name calling has no place in this meeting, so please. All good. We'll hear from James McFadden next. James, you should now be able to speak.
First, I wanted to say that a little Kamala Harris couldn't grow up in Drosty's neighborhood because that neighborhood is going to be exempt from this upzoning. So, that was a false, analysis. Second, the missing middle is really a marketing scam. So I hate to hear you guys keep repeating it. It's an attempt to appeal to the middle class while actually supporting market rate profit maximization. Third, California YIMBY lobbyist Daryl Owens announced at the BNC meeting that he had written this. This item originated in real estate lobbying groups and the public needs to know this. Fourth, Berkeley's racist segregation past was from redlining, a private project by developers, landlords, and real estate interests, including banks, not a zoning issue. Redlining was enforced by those same real estate interests of pushing this zoning change. So this is being falsely marketed. And make no mistake, this is developer-sponsored upzoning, and the changes will not provide any additional affordable houses. Let this item
Thank you so much for your comments, James. Next, we'll hear from Mari. Mari, you should now be able to speak.
Okay, there's so much to say again, too. I second full-heartedly Thomas Lord's comments. It's insulting with which you guys sit here and use, the well-rehearsed rhetoric that you've got down to sell this campaign as something that's for the community. It might as well be called a 21st century redlining sold to the community as a commitment to create housing for the missing middle, of which you profess to care so deeply about. But the truth of the matter is that the real estate finance industry, with the support of local and statewide politicians nationally and internationally, have created the biggest finance scam and the most detrimental by extracting wealth from one of our most basic rights, the right to housing. The foreclosure scam set this up, set the stage, and then they raise the rents. Then you further throw salt in the wound with legislators and elected bodies selling us this rhetoric that you're telling us today to benefit finance industry players by streamlining, fast-tracking, deregulating, rezoning, high-densifying neighborhoods under the lie of caring about creating housing for our community. In the end, the wealth is being extracted by the real estate finance market. Your decisions will show us who you side with.
Thank you so much for your comments,
disingenuous
Mari.
portrayal of making these
Speaker's
changes
time
are
has
caring
elapsed.
about the community.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mari. We'll hear next from John Minot. John, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, thank you. I'm John Minot. I'm speaking to support this measure wholeheartedly. I observe from a policy point of view, it's really exciting that Berkeley has this shot at showing how pro-housing measures work together with tenant protection measures, making more rent-controlled units. That we're recognizing that the housing that low-income tenants occupy now was largely market-rate apartments built decades ago. The collective decision to choke off this kind of housing has been slowly strangling tenants since before even the first tech boom in the 90s. As they say, the second best time to plant a tree is right now, so let's get those seeds. I also want to observe it may not be enough to simply open up North Berkeley to quadplex development on the same terms as the rest of the city because of the higher land prices there. So I hope you will consider increasing the buildable envelope in places like North Berkeley to make sure that we counteract the legacy of that past exclusion and monitor once implementation that it actually happens. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. And mine it. Noted. Thank you, John. Next, we'll hear from Meryl Siegel. Meryl, you should now be able to speak.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate speaking here today. So I wanted to address 2 points regarding this legislation. One is the issue of just ministerially removing that and not allowing any discretion, not allowing any planning, not putting it out there to make sure that we have setbacks or any of the rules that are already in place through the Planning Commission. And I want to echo Patrick's voice on that one. That to me is one of the biggest issues. And secondly, without having those rules, we will not have, as Councilperson Sophie Hahn mentioned, beautiful fourplexes that allow people the same feeling of living in single family homes. We won't have that. And regarding Lori Drosty's comment about
Thank you so much for your comments, Meryl.
West
Speaker's time has elapsed.
not wealthy.
Thank you so much for your comments, Meryl. We'll hear now from Jeanne. Jeanne, you should now be able to speak. Good afternoon, Jeanne. Talking is permitted for your account. You may need to unmute yourself from your end.
Got it. Okay, my name is
There we go.
Judy, and I live in a North Berkeley neighborhood that, from what I can tell, does not appear to have been considered, in actuality an exclusionary area. I live in a very diverse neighborhood, and the people who lived here moved here when they didn't have a lot of money. And yes, we can't call them tech people, but the people who have moved in my neighborhood are in fact people who came from San Francisco. So, and the people who have left died off or have wanted something smaller. So I think it's offensive to put in this whole thing about it being exclusionary. But my issues are your proposal does not have details. You talk about that it's only going to take the place of a large house when you know, and when you put in your report that it's really duplex takes the small and I think you need details like mass and size and setbacks.
Thank you so much for your comments, Jean.
Proposal.
Thank you so much for your comments, Jean. We'll hear now from Daryl Owens.
Hi, Council. Firstly, it's known that I have disagreements with Councilmember Hahn, but I am really proud of what she said. I strongly agree that we don't need high density housing on every block. It's just a matter of contextual housing that my parents built when family members moved in. This is some basic stuff. This zoning is already legal in the blackest parts of South Berkeley. The part of South Berkeley is already R2A with the most Black residents. So it's a little suspicious when, as soon as we start talking about allowing multifamily housing tenants to live in parts of Berkeley like North Berkeley and Claremont, all of a sudden people are talking about gentrification. That doesn't really add up unless there's something else going on there. Single family zoning was written by a developer in Berkeley. It is a Jim Crow era relic, and the segregationist on here who said that I wrote this is lying. I didn't write this, but tenants shouldn't be banned in 50% of Berkeley.
Thank you so much for your comments, Daryl. We'll hear now from Jake Price. Jake, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, Jake Price on behalf of YIMBY Action. I was born and raised in Berkeley and now live in Oakland, largely because of the current lack of affordability in my hometown. We all know at this point the legacy of exclusionary zoning in Berkeley, and this is just one of the tools to help address our ugly past and its current implications. The status quo of our land use policies, which is what people calling in to oppose this are advocating for, has yielded the same gentrification and lack of affordability that they claim to be against. As a city in one of the wealthiest regions in the world, single-family zoning as is what is incentivizing speculation, as evidenced by exploding property values of single-family homes. I would like to move back to my hometown at some point, and this is a necessary but not sufficient first step. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Jake. We'll hear now from Todd Darling. Todd Darling, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, thank you. Todd Darling here. In theory, allowing some Berkeley properties to become fourplexes or duplexes could make sense, but as proposed as a consent calendar item without much specificity, ultimately requiring only ministerial approval by our planning department, this indicates a high potential for mischief. Absent guidelines to assure affordability, climate resilience, including the ability to generate solar power, preserve adequate open space, protect against displacement and gentrification, or for low and middle income residents to gain access to finance additional units for multi-generational families. This resolution, despite noting the tragic history of racism, ironically poses a threat to homeowners in the flats, especially working class Black and brown people. This resolution should not be on the consent calendar. Questions need to be asked and debated. What is the vision? What are the protections that will be affordable? Will there be financing, public financing for low and middle income homeowners to build the units for family and friends? We've not emerged from the pandemic.
Thank you so much for your comments, Todd. Speaker's time has elapsed. Thank you, Todd. We'll hear now from Nico Nagel.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Nico Nagel. I'm speaking on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition. We will submit a fuller letter with outlining our support for quadplex legislation. I do want to call out, though, right, on this call, there have been a number of folks who have said that this doesn't do enough. Why are we actually, why don't we get serious about this? And 100% agree that there's more work to be done on confronting the structures of racism. But if denying the first step, and a really good first step at tearing down the mechanisms of racism, isn't good enough and isn't a good first step, I don't know where to start. So I just want to say that on behalf of the organization, support this, and I think really everyone should as well. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Nico. We'll hear next from Bobby Lopez. Hi, Bobby. Should be able to
Hey,
speak.
good afternoon, everybody. Bobby Lopez, Todco. We're an affordable housing provider. We support this first step to effort to upzone. However, we just want to say it's paramount to incorporate the recommendations by the Berkeley Tenants Union to offset gentrifying impacts. We appreciate your consideration of a displacement risk analysis. Fundamentally, the best way to address the missing metal in affordable housing, however, is to have one of the 4 properties be deed restricted at the AMI levels, which Berkeley has drastically failed to meet on the RENA. In our poll with Binder Associates back in September, 62% of your Berkeley constituents wanted you to focus on building new affordable housing as a top priority. Only 14% believe your priority should be market rate, which is the bill before us. Hopefully that gets amended and changed. To address tenant concerns, I myself am a former housing inspector from San Francisco. I saw duplexes and single family get targeted by speculators. So I just want to say how important it is to strengthen tenant laws like passing TOPA, and that should go hand in hand with this proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Bobby. And next we'll hear from Kelly Hammergren. Kelly, you should now be able to speak.
Thank you. I have 3 things to comment. I really think that this is an end run around ZORP, and that's unfortunate. It's placed as a priority item, and birth safe glass has been languishing in the Planning Commission for well over a year. And I think that is terribly unfortunate when we're building a lot of 6-story buildings and other buildings where we would like to see birth safe glass. And my greatest concern about this is the ministerial approval. Having attended a lot of committee, ZAB, and DRC meetings, ministerial approval assumes that the contractor or developer who's going to turn it in really understands or is interested in a well-designed building. And so if this was not ministerial approved and went through ZAB where we could comment, make sure that the roof line is the right direction for solar and space, then I would feel
Thank you so much for your comments, Kelly.
About it.
Thank you so much, Kelly. We'll hear next from Chris.
Hi, this is Chris Lee Egan. I think it is absolutely imperative that Berkeley move forward with legalizing fourplexes. I would also like to underline that as part of like the base fourplex legalization, there must be some sort of like zoning waiver. I live in an R2 area, which normally allows up to like 4 units, but has so many like zoning code restrictions that in practice, my area is pretty much single family home only. I live across the street from a quadplex. It's part of the neighborhood character. It has long-term residents there, but I looked up the building and the property, and basically every single part of that building violates zoning code: lot coverage, setbacks, unit density, etc. If we want to have meaningful change, we should also make sure that there's some kind of provision that we can build more buildings like that. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your comments, Chris. We'll hear next from Ben Gould.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm speaking today as a volunteer with Berkeley Neighbors for Housing and Climate Action, and I urge you to support this item. Berkeley needs more homes to address our shared affordability and climate crises, and we particularly need a diversity of housing types to facilitate socioeconomic diversity throughout our city. This modest policy would allow up to 4 homes to share 1 parcel throughout most of the city, expanding housing choices and making it easier for people to live close to all the jobs and amenities we have, while still preserving the physical height and setback requirements that maintain the physical experience in the environment. On a personal note, I want to add that as a young tenant myself who grew up in Berkeley, it's frustrating to try to find housing here because I have to compete for the limited supply amongst everybody else who wants to live here. Meanwhile, we're hearing a lot of objections, people who are able to buy their own homes from for-profit developers speculating they could sell it at market rates, when right now people are unable to find a place to live without crowding into several people per bedroom or into living rooms. So I hope we can find ways to create a wider range of housing in this community.
Thank you so much for your comments, Ben. Real quick, before we go to the next comments, Vice Mayor Drosty, as a matter of biological necessity, can I make you a co-host for a comment or two?
Please do.
I'll be right back.
Okay, so Linda Franklin, you are up next. I am allowing you to speak. You are on, Linda.
Hi, I'm appreciating that you folks have added affordability to the measure, that Frosty has said that she's adding affordability concerns to her item, but this was just posted after the meeting had started, actually, and so none of us have had time to read it. I want to point out the need for affordability, that the current or new or remodeled West Berkeley units are not affordable to lower income folks. They're running from $24.50 to $42.50 per month for a 2 to 3 bedroom unit. And finally, I want to support Kelly's comments that hearings like ZAB and design review allow affected neighbors to improve a design by pointing out problems before the project is finalized. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. Just as a note, the affordability provisions, it was always in the item, but it's posted online if people want to look at the amendments. Okay, next up we have Robert. Robert, I'm going to allow you to talk.
Good afternoon, council members. I can't talk very much right now, so I'll just say that my name is Robert Fruckman. I live in San Francisco, and I support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to Eric. Eric, you are permitted to speak.
Hi, thanks everyone. My name is Eric Johnson. I live in North Berkeley and I support this measure. A quadplex next door is not a big change. We have a lot on my street. And of course, it doesn't negatively affect the neighborhood one bit. They're all part of the community, including a lot of families that my kids go to school with, which is great. The status quo in Berkeley will be more exclusion, more gentrification, and more rising prices. So we absolutely need new housing at every level, and any newly built apartments will be more affordable than nearly any single family home in Berkeley, which is a great but incomplete step in the right direction. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. And moving on to Carol. Carol, you are on.
When I first reviewed this item, I thought, well, they're addressing the missing middle. And then I recalled the council discussion that took place regarding the condos in West Berkeley that were 4 units to a lot. And they were being developed by the same developer, but the developer was skirting the below market rate requirement by having them 4 units to a lot. And so when I hear the word quadplex, I also start thinking that developers might be developing multiple units without any below market rate requirement. And so I believe that needs to be addressed. I would like to see what other jurisdictions have done and the socioeconomic impact of a program or a zoning such as this being implemented. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Carol. I'm back. I'll usurp the virtual gavel again. Before we proceed, I understand a number of members of the public, given time constraints this afternoon, would like to submit their comments in writing to the city clerk. Can I confirm that members of the public can write to policycommittee@cityofberkeley.info to have their comments read aloud at the end of the meeting or at the end of the comment section?
Certainly, that's correct.
One more time, that's policycommittee policycommittee@cityofberkeley.info. 2 M's, 2 T's, 2 E's. policycommittee@cityofberkeley.info. Thank you. We'll hear next from Deborah Moore.
Hi, my name is Deborah. I was one of the people who needs to leave, so I'm now surprised that I'm speaking. Okay, I'm a longtime Berkeley resident. I'm an environmental advocate, environmental scientist. I used to work for the Union of Concerned Scientists, so I work on policy. I've helped pass a lot of laws in California, clean energy, climate laws. So I know that the devil's in the details, I guess. I support quadruplexes in Berkeley. I'm a homeowner in North Berkeley. So I support this in concept. I've only just recently found out about this. I can't find the amendments. They keep saying, oh, it's on the website. I've been to the website. So anyway, maybe that's just me. But my main concern is this ministerial administrative decision-making thing. And I don't know why that is necessary to accomplish the goals. And I've been part of other problems in Berkeley where having a neighbor be able to participate in the process has been really important. So I don't know why that's so critical to this policy.
Thank you so much for your comments, Deborah.
Thank
We'll
you.
hear next from Mike Rutchless.
Hi, thank you. I'm a member of Berkeley Great Panthers, and we voted yesterday to oppose this measure as currently written. And the reason I want to address mostly is the lack of affordable housing, real affordable housing provisions. Market rate housing is not affordable housing for low-income people. And there needs to be, we're wanting that at least one of the units of the quadruplex be mandated to be affordable housing, and that without that, this measure does not make sense. And also, we support the Berkeley Tenants Union position on the other, making sure that no tenants are displaced. And anyway, that's what I'd like to say.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mike. We'll hear next from JC. JC, you should now be able to speak.
Can you hear me?
We can. Hi, JC.
Okay. Hi, thanks for the interesting discussion on zoning. I haven't read the entire document yet, but I am concerned, as was Patrick, Merrill, Todd, and Deborah, about the ministerial approval. I'd like to know more what that actually means, because what it feels like to me is it feels like an avoiding accountability to residents and neighborhoods. I could be wrong, but I would like to hear what the council says. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll hear next from Kathy Fogel. Hello, Kathy. Should now be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay,
Hi.
great.
Yes,
First
we
of
can
all,
hear you.
Thank you to all three of you for your service to the city of Berkeley. I want to join my voice to Deborah's and others who've raised the questions about the ministerial aspect of it. That concerns me probably the most, is it feels like residents won't have any opportunity to be informed, to shape a project that could dramatically affect our everyday lives. I'm also concerned about the sizing. I don't know if I live in a historical neighborhood or not, but I'm very concerned about ugly big box condos coming in, and we can't have anything to say about it. So I don't know if the same housing size setbacks would apply, but I really think they need to. If that were insured, I wouldn't have such a problem with this. And I also am curious, what about duplexes? I'm not sure why we're going straight to quadplexes. Why don't we just limit it to duplexes? I live in a duplex actually. So, I think there's options to make this more palatable to residents, and appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thank you so much for your comments, Kathy. We'll hear next from Betsy Morris. Betsy Morris, you should now be able to speak.
Thank you. I I know this is a huge venue. I'm speaking on behalf of the Berkeley Gray Panthers and other members here today of our group who we do support the BTU's concerns, and I am gratified to hear the strengthened changes responding to some of those concerns about demolition, about displacement, about having rent board oversight and affordability. But I would like to say there is a way we can strengthen this nexus between the historic discrimination, segregation by both race and class. And that would be to look very creatively at making sure we can fully encourage the taking of Section 8 vouchers. We have a wait list of 700 people on our Section 8 list. And these are, if we can overcome the historic discrimination against such people, I think we would do a long ways to making our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much for your comments, Betsy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Betsy. Take care. We'll hear next from Mary Eleazar. Mary, you should be able to speak.
Mary Matson, Eleazar. Thank you. They are so many people who spoke are so right on. I think this proposal in general is a sham. I think it's trying to get people trying to get rich, trying to become developers if they're not already, trying to keep out people who really need the housing, which are the unhoused, who are and the people on Section 8. Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you, Kelly Hammergren, Becky O'Malley, James McFadden, and so many, and Linda Franklin. And let's not, this ministerial thing, yes, it is not a good proposal. It is not a good policy. It is not a good practice. It goes along, it's like a sham, and people trying to get rich. And this is not supporting the racist, the policies that had been in effect for so long. It is.
Thank you so much, Mary. Appreciate your comments. We'll hear next from Phyllis Orick. Phyllis, you should now be able to speak.
There. I think I just demuted myself. Hello. Hi, Rigel. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How
you doing?
having this. Oh, good. I'm just calling to say I enthusiastically support this effort. I've worked with a lot of the academics that Councilmember Drosty cites, and they are number one, many of them from our own UC. And I want to get to this ministerial thing a little bit. I just built an ADU in my backyard, moved in so my son, who's a Berkeley High teacher, can live in our big house with his family. Only way he could teach at Berkeley High. We built it on the cusp of the change, where the state said, you sort of by right. If that hadn't happened, we would still be doing the permits. So that's just one thought on the ministerial thing. So keep it up. You have a lot of support, and I look forward to seeing this happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Phyllis. We'll hear next from Josh Newland. Josh Newland, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, yeah, I just want to say I really, really support this. I think it's great. We should allow more people to live in Berkeley. This is a great way of getting more people in here. I appreciate the council's efforts here. Thank you.
So concise. Thank you, Josh. We'll hear next from Victoria Fierce.
Hi, can you hear me?
Victoria, you should be able to speak. Yes, we can hear you.
Hi. I am a local resident. Sorry, my audio is like messing up right now. Hi, I'm a local resident. I live in downtown Oakland, and I'm calling in support of this idea. I've heard a number of comments talking earlier about, one that stuck out to me actually was about how this would destroy diversity by making the entire city look the same. I would like to point out that most of Berkeley already looks the same because it is majority single-family zoning. It's not a great way to build a city by having it look like that. I think fourplexes are a great idea because a unit in a fourplex is automatically going to be cheaper than whatever, a single family mansion is going to be that you find in the area. RENA is coming up soon. The city has to meet their RENA numbers. I was on the RENA subcommittee with ABAG, and Berkeley's got a pretty good number. I'm pretty happy with it, and you're going to need every tool in the toolbox to meet it. This will not end the housing crisis. It will not end the artificial shortage, but it is certainly a big tool, and it makes solving a lot of other problems a lot easier. Discretionary approval is bad. Please get rid of it. It invites corruption. Thank you.
Hi, Cheryl. Cheryl, you should now be able to speak.
Hello, former council member Cheryl Davila. For you, please be respectful. And to not only me, but to your constituents by not cutting them off mid-sentence. I mean, I think you just continue to eliminate the community's voices, and that's not okay. I agree with Becky O'Malley, Thomas Lord, Patrick Sheehan, Kathleen Quant, and the Berkeley Tenants Union, the Gray Panthers. And just want to make sure that everyone knows when new housing is built, it's not affordable for everybody. And this is, to me, a gentrifying move, a displacement move, a developer move. And who do you work for? You work for the constituents, not for the developers. You should remember that. This is how collusion and corruption occurs. I'm a 40-year resident, and
Thank you so much for your comments.
More gentrifying, and please don't cut me off. I'm almost done.
The speaker's time has elapsed. Thank you so much, former Councilmember Cheryl Davila, for your comments.
May I ask former Councilmember Davila a question?
You may.
Thank you. Councilmember Davila, what was it that you were trying to convey to us? Councilmember Davila, I was asking you a question.
I'm on in a meeting. Hold on one second. So really, it's like we need to create housing that's affordable for low, not middle class. Yeah, of course, middle class, but not market rate. You know, we don't need market rate housing anymore. We have an overabundance, and this missing middle is a bunch of BS. It's a gentrifying tactic, and I appreciate that you're allowed me to speak more. Thank you, Councilmember Hahn.
Thank you so much for your comments. Take care. We'll hear next from Sam Taplin. Sam Taplin, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the mention earlier, by the way. I think just like to take a really broad, like long-term, like view of the proposal. Is it right that like 50% of the land in Berkeley and 85% of the land in the Bay Area is only zoned for a type of housing that costs $1 million to buy? If you're buying it now, you know, should 50% of, you know, Berkeley's land and 85% of the Bay Area's land only be available to millionaires? And I think, you know, in those terms, it's clear that, you know, this is one of many changes we need to our zoning laws.
Thank you so much for your comments, Sam. Good luck on midterms. Take care. We'll hear next from Teresa Clark.
Hi, council members. I'm Teresa Clark. I live in South Berkeley. I'm also a member of the steering committee for South Berkeley now, and our steering committee supports the measure. And we'll be sending a little more detailed support letter following up on this. But I wanted to speak from my personal experience, you know, just trying to build a small duplex in the backyard of a property we own. And first of all, getting rid of the parking requirement was a great, I live on Otis Street, and having not, you know, we were limited by how many apartments we could build because of the parking thing. And then the cost, a lot of the value, so-called value recapture, has been eaten up by the construction costs. So it's a difficult, I wish I could give you more information about this, but on our block, we had a $2.2 million
Thank you so much for your comments,
mansion
Teresa.
created instead of a fourplex. So a $2.2 million mansion.
Time has
instead of a
elapsed.
fourplex.
Thank you so much for your comments, Teresa. We'll hear now from Sarah. Sarah Fine.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sarah Fine. I used to live in Berkeley. I would live in Berkeley in the future. I would love to live in the East Bay in the future, period. The very day this was introduced, my family bid on a house in South Berkeley that went for $800,000 over asking. This housing crisis is decades of underproduction in the making and requires a pro-housing, all the above approach to fix. Please support gentle creation of gentle density in Berkeley. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Sarah. We'll hear now from Dean Metzger. Dean, you should now be able to speak.
I'm here. I just wanted to say that what you have here is a credibility problem. In the past, we have asked for affordability. The developers come in with projects and we ask for affordability. You guys just pass it anyway. So your credibility on affordability is going to have to be beefed up if you want us to believe you. The other issue is design standards. You have refused to put any design standards on, so anyone who buys a property next to mine or yours can build it any way they want. You've got to have design standards so that we as neighbors in the neighborhood understand that we're not going to get a building that stops our solar, stops our light, air. We can live with it, and we're willing to live with it, but you're going to have to put the parameters in there that we know will be taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Dean. We'll hear now from Eugene Vinitsky.
Myself. Hi, my name is Eugene Vinitsky. I'm a graduate student at UC Berkeley. I just wanted to come in to chime in happy support of this measure. I think it's so great that Berkeley is leading as like a progressive city in tackling housing costs and trying to make it more affordable to everyone. Personally, Berkeley is super expensive for me as a graduate student. And so huge props to Lori Drost and Councilman Hahn on this, Drosty, I'm really sorry, on putting this measure forward. Yeah, really putting Berkeley forward as like a progressive leader in these issues. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much for your comments, Eugene. Go Bears. And next we'll hear from Adriana Valencia.
Hi, my name is Adriana Valencia. I've lived in the East Bay for 20 years. 4 of them were in Berkeley, where I went to grad school. So yeah, go Bears. And I would like the council to strongly support by right fourplexes. We need more housing. We needed it 30 years ago. Let's start building it. Let's make Berkeley truly diverse and accessible. Former council member Davila, who seems sorely naive about housing finance, said when new housing is built, it's not affordable to everybody. Yes, it's not affordable to everybody, but let's make housing so that essentially rich people are not living in the kind of housing where like lower middle class people should be living. Not should be living, but should be able to live. Let's make Berkeley affordable and accessible by building more housing. Thank you so much. Let's be accountable to the future and not to the past. Thanks again.
Thank you for your comments, Adriana. We'll hear next from Elliot Williams.
Hi there, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, my name is Elliot. I'm a resident of the R2A zoning area in Berkeley, north of downtown. I would like to echo a couple comments I've heard. First, the previous speaker. I have peers who are living in rent-controlled units who would like to buy their own homes or move to larger homes within their neighborhood, which are R2A, or maybe nearby, but in single-family areas and are unable to because it is unaffordable because the units don't exist. So these low-cost options are currently being occupied by people who would like to move to places that are just not available to purchase or move into. Additionally, I would like to urge the council to consider legalizing existing units. On my street, there are many lots that are out of compliance with the existing zoning, and it would be great if there was an option to bring those back into compliance on a lot-by-lot basis. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Elliot. We'll hear next from Warren Wells. Hi, Warren. You should be able to speak.
Hi, council members. Thank you for having me on. I'm calling in support of the measure to re-legalize fourplexes in Berkeley. My partner and I are residents of a triplex in South Berkeley that would be illegal to build today. And if not for the wide range of apartments built in the city before the downzoning in the 70s, she and I would honestly have to find another city to live in. I want to live in a welcoming city, but the current zoning regime has only served to push lower income folks out to lower costs of the Bay. The best time to legalize apartments in your city is 30 years ago. The second best time is today. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Warren, and nice hat. We'll hear next from Mary Bemsteinberg. Mary, you should now be able to speak. Hi, Mary.
Hi, thank you. I would like to echo the comments of Carol Marasovic and Michael Katz, Mr. Sheehan, Ms. Gantz, and so many others who have spoken about how poorly conceived this plan is and how really it's just a developer giveaway in disguise. And I'd like to urge anyone who thinks that they can't move here and says that it's not an affordability issue to go look over at the Jones. There are 87 units over there that are going begging, and nobody's taking care of all the vacancies that we already have. And nobody's doing a very effective job of considering the problems with the infrastructure and transit that make this more and more unusable for people that already live here. There are so many more ways that we can address opening up those units and not pitting neighbors against each other. If we would just address the problems of income inequality also posed by big tech at the state level. And I know y'all are dealing with top-down policy. You should be talking about that. And that is a measure of making things more affordable for everybody and ensuring that my neighbors aren't living on the street, because all this gentrification housing is just going to push more people out. And none of us need that. Also, I'd like to say that Councilmember Drosky is completely wrong. Actually, 22.9% of Berkeley homeowners are low income or below, and 4% of those are indigent. We need to make sure that no one gets displaced, and we need to make it possible for neighbors to help other neighbors and not to lose money doing it by reforming rent control and forcing large employers to pay the gap between the actual costs and what the lowest income landowners could afford to offer. Also, we need to make sure that those units are available for voucher holders.
Thank you so much for your comments, Mary. Thank you so much for your comments. We'll hear next from Jeopardy legend, Sam Deutsch. Sam, you should now be able to speak.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon, and thank you for introducing this fantastic proposal. I want to specifically call out how the city of Portland, Oregon looked at its own policy to allow fourplexes on its own lots in most of the city. And they ran a study to see what the impact would be, and they found that it would actually lower the risk of displacement for low-income renters specifically by up to 28%. So I think on its own, this is a great policy. Obviously, our housing crisis goes far beyond this, and this is just the first necessary but not sufficient step. But I'm excited to see it pan out, and I applaud the council for taking this bold step on such an important issue. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sam. We'll hear next from Nico Wright. Nico, the floor is yours.
Oh, we might have heard from them.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Oh, did we already? I think you're remembering Nico Nagel. I don't believe we've heard from Nico Wright yet. All good. Nico Wright, how are you? Nico Wright, how are you?
Hi, sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Hello?
We can hear you, Nico.
Sorry, maybe you guys can hear me now. There you go. Yeah, I just want to say I'm strongly in favor of this recommendation. Just make the finer point that, missing middle is really necessary for working people like myself. I live in North Berkeley. I rent a 1-bedroom house. It's actually part of 4 units that are on one lot. It was done in the, 40s. It's an amazing model that should be allowed for in the future. There really currently are no options for ownership between the kind of $1 million+ 2-bedroom single family bungalows and the very limited amount of BMR apartments. And if we want to grow the city and have a future in which people who help make it happen here can participate and have a long term, this is a great proposal. Thank you very much. I yield my time.
Thank you for your comments, Nico. We'll hear next from Matthew Lewis. Matthew, you should now be able to speak.
So none of the authors reached out to us, to the Berkeley Tenants Union whatsoever, or our tenants groups, to ask how this method could be done in a just way. Just last month, the mayor's office told us that they would reach out to us about any housing matters. So, complete silence on this matter. But that pales in comparison to how some of the other co-sponsors of this item have acted. Just yesterday, Councilmember Drosty gaslit the Berkeley Tenants Union, claiming that SB 330 already bans the demolition of rent-controlled units. As members of the 4x4 committee would know from meeting last year, that's simply not true. We're glad that she's finally adding a prohibition on demolishing rent-controlled units, but that should have been there from the beginning. We also had Councilmember Tapling's staff gaslighting us, claiming that there's an affordability requirement in this measure. That's not true. The affordability requirement would only apply if somebody elects to use a density bonus, which many for-profit developers will not do. And it's funny because he said that they were acting in good, that sponsors have been acting in good faith, but that's the same person who referred to the—
Thank you so much for your comments, Matthew.
Individual.
The speaker's time has elapsed. We'll hear now from Dan Pontius. Dan Pontius, you should now be able to speak.
Hello?
Hello, Dan.
Hey, Berkeley, go Bears. Anyway,
Bears.
yeah, we need more of houses. I think all housing should be free. I'm sick of my people being stepped on. And that last lady, commissioner woman, she was mean. I don't like how she treated you, and she doesn't get to speak longer just because she says so. She should be banished and excluded from everything here henceforth, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you for your comments, Dan. And for our penultimate comment, we'll hear from Sarah. Sarah Ogilvie. Sarah, you should now be able to speak.
Thank you so much, Council Member. Yes, my name is Sarah Ogilvie. I live in San Francisco. I am a Berkeley Cal graduate, and I support this legislation. I think that not only is the Bay Area looking, but the entire nation is looking to see what Berkeley will do to end the history of exclusionary zoning. I think that this is also a critical measure for the upcoming arena housing element. I think that this is a very important tool in the toolbox, as Ms. Victoria Fierce stated. And I think that you should use this as an opportunity to talk about legalizing, re-legalizing multifamily housing throughout the city of Berkeley, including apartment housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for your comments, Sarah. And for our antepenultimate comments, we have Andrew Talbot.
Hi, thank you. I'm a homeowner here in West Berkeley, and I just want to say I appreciate so much all the work that the council is doing to put this forward. This is an amazing proposal and really awesome. You know, the housing crisis that we live in here in the Bay Area has been many years in the making, and it's not going to be immediate in the undoing, but this is an important step, and it's going to be another tool in the toolbox that should really help us, you know, bring more neighbors into our neighborhoods and make more friends. So I really appreciate this opportunity to speak in favor of this proposal, and I'm excited to see more of what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments, Andrew. We'll hear now from one more comment jump in, and that's where I'll draw the line. We'll have 3 final comments from Kevin, Chris, and then is that Aneha, I believe? Kevin, you now have the floor.
Hi, my name is Kevin Burke. I grew up in the East Bay. I support the proposal. I'm confused by the opposition to this proposal on affordability grounds, since the alternative to this is the status quo, which is what it's been for 100 years, which is it's only legal to build single family homes, which is much worse on affordability grounds than what the proposal is. Single family homes are expensive because you need to buy the house and you need to buy the backyard and you need to buy a garage. With the fourplex, you don't need to do any of those things. So it's a lot more affordable that way. I'm young. I won the startup lottery. I can afford a house. That's basically the only way you can do that now if you're a young person. I think that's really unfair, and I think we need more affordable options, and I think this is a good first step. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments, Kevin. We'll hear next from Chris Ballinger.
Hey, yeah, I just want to speak in support of this proposal to legalize fourplexes throughout the city. I live in a rent-controlled apartment that would have been illegal to build, in its current location. It's basically in that, single-family zoning, but the building is like 100 years old. So, part of the reason I can live here is because at one point it was legal to build housing, and I'd like to see more of it built to help with affordability. And yeah, I am just very much in support of this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Chris. And our final comment will be from Aneha. Aneha, you'll have the last word.
Hi.
Hello.
Wait, what am I to tell?
You have 1 minute to offer public comment on this item.
I start the timer. Okay. First, you're living in America, yes? USA? Hello?
We have a guest.
Hello?
First, I ask a question. You live in USA, right?
We usually don't engage in a back and forth during public comment, but yes, we do. This is a policy committee meeting of the Berkeley City Council in California.
Okay. You can ask next. I just stay here.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate your comments. That will conclude public comment for this item. I know we also have written comments, which the city clerk will get to in a moment. Before we get there, I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Hahn, I believe you have a hard stop, an important meeting at 1 p.m. So it's my expectation that we will unfortunately have to continue this item. But I want to let you know before we go, I may check in with the city clerk and see about scheduling a special meeting for this item so we can try to get a little more dedicated time for it, and also revisit some of these issues about Zoom capacity so we can make sure we are able to get this done right. Thank you all for your participation. The city clerk, would you be able to recite for us any written comments that have come in during this meeting?
Councilmember Robinson, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's here. Sorry I have to drop off. This seems like a good juncture. And
me too. Yeah.
Are we not allowed to even do a motion to continue, or we don't have to do that, right?
Do you both have to go?
I canceled my 12:30. I have a 1 o'clock, but it's okay. I'll wait and have the public comments be read into the record, and then we can adjourn.
Gotcha.
Okay, just
Excellent.
for those folks who may have written in to know, this is recorded, and I will definitely be listening to the comments that were read in. And I believe they're also going to be provided to us in writing. Is that not right?
That's right.
Yes. Okay. So I will not have missed anything.
All good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sophie. You're off the hook. Catch you soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Are you ready for the written comments, Chairperson?
I believe we are. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Okay, we do have a number of them, and I will run the timer as well.
Excellent.
Okay. First comment is from Elisa Foster. To Jesse Aragine and City Council, number 1 on the agenda, 80% of the median rent is not affordable by most of the population of the East Bay. No one's housing is protected as low-income multi-units after Prop 19, so most homes will be removed. Number 2 on the agenda, the proposition before the council to allow fourplexes and higher in what are currently R1 and R2 neighborhoods in Berkeley allows developers to buy up homes, tear them down, and build much larger buildings. These homes are now mostly owned by seniors, mostly women of all ethnicities. Rezoning will give developers total control over our neighborhoods, replacing small homes with fourplexes or larger. For-profit investors have exploited the housing market, destroying communities all over the world, leaving behind towering steel and glass boxes that only 30% of the population can afford to live in. This is not affordable housing, it is profiteering by overseas investors and developers. Those able to pay to live in them are only 30% of the population. Next comment. This comment is from Chris Reed. Because I have work commitments, I wasn't able to stay for the entire meeting to give my comments. I urge the City Council to legalize fourplexes throughout the city. I've lived in the Bay Area my entire life and I'm the father of 2 small children. My wife and I both work for our education nonprofits. I go to work and drop my kids off at daycare on foot. My wife takes BART to work. We're doing our best to lower our carbon footprint. Increasing the supply of housing by legalizing fourplexes will help my family stay in the city that we love so much. The evidence is overwhelming that legalizing more housing will help affordability. Census data clearly shows that single-family housing is overwhelmingly occupied by high-income households, and that multifamily housing units are occupied by those with lower incomes. Concerns regarding the neighborhood character painfully echo the racist history of single-family zoning as policy. Thank you for looking into this issue. Next comment. This is from Sean McLaughlin. I'm Sean McLaughlin, a resident of South Berkeley's Elmwood neighborhood. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that our high housing costs are dominated by too much demand over too much housing supply. Concerns about vacant units and developer speculation are overblown. Eliminating single-family zoning is not a panacea for Berkeley's housing woes, but will enable more housing to be constructed and therefore enable a more diverse group of mid and lower income people to move into our city. Not to mention climate and environmental benefits of increased density. On a personal note, my partner and I love living in Berkeley, but as it stands, we won't be able to afford to do so, despite both being educated young professionals. Reforms such as this one are a step for folks like us, and more importantly, folks with less privilege than us, to also enjoy all that Berkeley has to offer. Next comment is from Will Porterfield. I was unable to comment during the meeting. I would like to support the measure as more housing is urgently needed to address the housing and homeless crisis in the Bay Area. Even with less affordable housing guarantees than ideal, additional housing will be a good first step to help in this crisis. Thanks. Next comment. Oops, sorry. This is from Constance Rivermail. Dear Sophie Hahn and Mayor Aragine and other members of the City Council, I waited hours to speak today. I was not successful. I would like to have my comments read. Cui bono, who profits? 1. When you remove the right of citizens and residents of Berkeley to comment on, participate in, or otherwise be involved in the permit process. Cui bono, who profits? Answer, the real estate developers profit. 2. When you close down community discourse by changing the permit process to a fait accompli controlled by the non-elected planning department bureaucrats empowered by a city council, thereby eliminating any criticism, who profits? Non-democratic processes become the norm. There is too much trouble to listen to the community. There can be no debate. Cui bono? Answer, authoritarianism is and the degradation of the democratic process profit. And of course, the real estate developers profit. 5. The destruction of backyards, parks, open spaces, trees, extra strain on an aging infrastructure. Next comment. from Ann Paulson. This is from Ann Paulson. I wholeheartedly support this proposal. I commend the city of Berkeley for your leadership and hope that other cities follow your lead. I particularly support ministerial approval. Allowing endless public meetings is a way to make housing too expensive to build. For a builder who is working on a tiny margin, time is money. A small business person cannot afford to wait around for a year or two while neighbors whine and delay about trivialities of a shadow on someone's yard for a few hours of a year or roof lines. If a building satisfies the building codes of Berkeley, it should be approved without a neighbor's veto. Next comment is from Daniel Rosenthal. Dear Berkeley, we made a segregated city. In the beginning, it was done intentionally and nobody was in doubt about it. Later, we found less obvious ways to achieve the same segregation. And of these, zoning was the big one. Now we've got a chance to do better and we must take it. Please make this change to our zoning for the sake of housing, for the sake of equity, and for the sake of history. Thanks. The next comment is from Mark Misoshnik. Dear council members, my name is Nark and I am a member of the Berkeley Tenants Union. I am writing to demand that you do not pass the proposed upzoning bill without affordability requirements. Allowing corporate developers to build market rate fourplexes that are unaffordable to the vast majority of tenants will not solve our affordable housing crisis, nor will it allow people who have been displaced to return to the city. Rather, it will exacerbate this crisis by accelerating gentrification. Tenants need affordable housing, not more corporate giveaways. If the committee truly wants to use by right fourplexes to mitigate our affordable housing crisis, it must start by making the following 3 changes to this proposal. 1, require at least one of the units in the development to be permanently affordable to low-income tenants, and 2, require that the proposed housing development not require demolition or alteration of any rent-controlled housing. The existing proposal already has similar proposal for BMR units. And 3, require that the proposed housing development not require demolition or alteration in any way that results in the issuance of a certificate of occupancy time. And the final comment that we received by email during the meeting is from Phyllis Orick. Dear committee members, as a homeowner in West Berkeley on a block with 5 duplexes, 2 triplexes, and 1 quadplex, I enthusiastically support Drosty's proposal. As for the ministerial element, the city is now experiencing a boom in ADUs, in part because they are by right. As someone who just built an ADU in my backyard that was permitted on the cusp of this change, the potential burdens that removed were substantial. Berkeley's population is the same as it was 50 years ago. That's not sustainable or moral. And that is the final written comment that we received.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sarah. Councilmember Drosty. Just want to check in. I know you're on the cusp of having to roll out of here.
I gotta get going. So
you got to run. All good.
All right.
For the members of the public here, the moment Councilmember Drosty leaves this meeting, we will no longer have quorum. The meeting will effectively be adjourned. So we're unable to take up the rest of the agenda. But this committee meets bi-weekly. We'll expect to meet again in 2 weeks. There's a possibility we'll schedule a special meeting during that time. So stay tuned on the city website. And thank you all for your participation and engagement today. It's appreciated.
Bye.
Peace, Laurie. City Clerk, does that mean this meeting is adjourned?
Yes, we're effectively adjourned because we no longer have quorum.
Excellent. Thank you all. We'll tune in next time. Thank you, Sarah. Take care.
Well, that was fun. Yeah, so this meeting, there wasn't going to be anything voted on or anything like that. It's just a procedural thing where they were having a hearing about it to get some feedback and input on it. And yeah, it sounds like the comments are, you know, pretty bog standard for Berkeley. Nothing fancy. Okay, cool. Meeting's finally done. So if you are new to my stream, hello. I'm trying to do stuff with streaming government meetings on short notice and things like that and get better at it. Welcome. Make sure you subscribe, etc., etc. Yeah, thanks, Brian. Thanks for, glad you liked the stream. invite me to a meeting sometime. Yeah. I'm trying to get Democratic Central Committee meetings up, which are a little bit more difficult to run because I have, I sit on the committee, so I have to like actually pay attention. I can't really give too much commentary on it too well. But we'll see what happens next week, or in a couple of weeks when it happens. So yeah, just one more time. Qui bono. That was an interesting letter. Qui bono. Who profits? Qui bono. Who profits? Anyways, fourplexes are good. We should have more of them. There was a lot of comments in support. There was a lot of comments in opposition. There was also a lot of just like really fucking clueless people. Pretty sure that this is going to move forward. Again, this was just an informational hearing to get feedback on it, so they weren't going to vote on anything. As more updates come forward, stay tuned to East Bay for Everyone, the group that's been doing a lot of organizing here, along with North Berkeley Now, Berkeley Neighbors for Climate and Housing Action. There's a lot of good like East Bay efforts and ENB groups involved in this and making this happen and bringing it forward. So it's very exciting. But yeah, stay tuned for news from me and others, and we'll keep you up to date on as fourplexes go forward. And soon, very soon, we'll be able to finally abolish single-family zoning in Berkeley, which would be great. So thanks for watching, I guess. If anybody has like any questions or something about what this was, go ahead and drop it in chat. I'm watching. There's like a couple second delay because I just like quickly set this together. Can I turn the latency down? No. Yeah, I'm glad you all enjoyed the stream. I'm trying to do better at this and things more transparent, and also just get better at streaming myself. So this was good. Let me switch to this one. Yeah, single-family zoning is in fact Berkeley's fault in the first place. It invented single-family zoning, so it's kind of amusing / not surprising that a lot of Berkeley is opposed to getting rid of it. Because like, why would you want to get rid of the thing that you invented and you cherish it so well and it's so important to yourself and your own cultural identity as a single-family homeowner, which is just another form of speculation, anyways. Yeah, so the issue with the affordability recs is that a lot of commenters were talking about, it's just Bay Area politics, right? Is that with any kind of housing proposal, people are always coming out and demanding more affordable housing. And the thing with affordable housing in California is that it's very difficult to get public money to fund a lot of these things. So the way that we do it is through things called like density bonuses and cross subsidization, where you build a bunch of market rate housing and then the extra rents from those market rate units then subsidize and pay for the lower income affordable units. And when that happens, you have to have a sufficient amount of market rate housing to have enough money left over after paying for the building and the mortgage and all that to fund and subsidize the affordable units, which in a fourplex, the economics of it just simply don't work out. Unless you want to rent 3 of the units for, 6 times the market price, which is kind of what you need to subsidize the affordable unit in it. So another approach that Berkeley is considering is, and a lot of cities have this already, thanks to statewide density bonus law, it's called. And what it is if you propose a project that fits the zoning in some way, let's say it's like 10 units or something, or 10 stories even, you can apply for a density bonus and you're allowed to add more units provided that you also include a few more affordable units. And it like increases that, that ratio. I know Derek asked this question. He works in affordable housing, so he like already knows a lot of what I'm explaining. But in Berkeley, it's just 4 units. You just can't make it pencil. So there's a city is like working on a small kind of density bonus program. And that's the affordability parts that people are talking about. But of course, there's like this strange disconnect between the people who are writing the law and understand that density bonus does work versus people who just don't live in that same reality. Because they don't understand that the density bonus law is the most effective tool that California cities have for creating affordable housing. It's also not the best tool, but it's also the most effective tool. It sucks, but it's the best thing that we have right now. Yeah, even with the density bonuses, things like that can be very hard to pencil out. Things are very narrowly, the finances are very tight on things. You can't really handle a lot of delays. You can't handle a lot of problems and hangups like that. So it makes it very difficult, which is also why this proposal includes ministerial approval. And ministerial approval just means that if it fits the zoning, you send it to the administration, the ministerial, and they look at it and they approve it, and there's no process, there's no appeals, there's no lengthy lawsuits, you don't have to fight your neighbors and spend a bunch of money on that, and it just goes through. And that's a big part of why the fourplexes are going to be able to work out, is because of this, ministerial approval. Derek asks, so the consideration is a density bonus would provide the affordable requirements, and those against don't acknowledge the scaling doesn't work under a threshold. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it, is that a lot of people, like the density bonus, it is optional. If you're a housing developer, you don't have to take the density bonus. You can opt into it. And it's sort of the developer's decision whether they want to or not, which in the real world that, you and I, this reality that you and I are experiencing, the shared reality that is true, developers look at that and say, well, I can make a little bit more money and still be able to provide affordable housing. And so that's how it works out, is that more often than not, a developer is going to take the density bonus because they make a little bit more money off of it, and they also get the affordable housing built into it, and they can add a few more units, and it works out and it's great. But because there is that like little wedge of discretion on the developer, people just kind of lose their shit about it. And in some cases they correctly assume that developers are evil and they're only thinking about profit and they don't want to take these things, which is true, which is why a density bonus works, because it is focused on profit and it does change how the financing of these projects work out. So that's what the consideration is right now. And of course, people are very skeptical about it because they don't, understand how these things work, because they don't have that experience, because housing development process is just needlessly complex and complicated. Another thing about the ministerial approval is that it does actually reduce your costs, as I said, so it makes it a lot cheaper. It makes it easier to get a density bonus. So, yeah. Hi, Chris plays games from Cambridge. Nice to see you. You spent 2 hours on the IZ calculator trying to figure out how to make 20% work in Cambridge, even with 10 units. Yeah, it's hard. A fun fact, actually, about Berkeley is that I think it was 2017 or 18. They updated or passed something to change their impact fees, their inclusionary impact fees. And what that means is if you build market rate housing, you have to pay some amount of money as a fee for every unit of market rate housing, which then goes towards affordable housing. And the way that the ordinance was written is that like it doesn't apply for projects of like 10 units or less. And it's kind of incredible that it was written like that, because it was written like that it was started out as 4 units. If you build 4 units or less, you don't have to pay the impact fees. And then it bumped up to 10 units by Councilmember Sophie Hahn, who represents the Berkeley Hills, where it's basically illegal to build any, projects smaller than, any projects bigger than 4 or 5 units in her district. So she simultaneously said nice things about affordable housing and outlawed the construction in addition of affordable housing by not requiring affordable housing to be built in her district for projects of her size. And then she turns around, and just complains about it and says, oh, this isn't affordable and I care about affordability, but at the same time, has fought very hard against things that would make that actually happen. So it's very frustrating to be in Bay Area politics. And if you are not in the Bay Area and you're watching this stream, congratulations, welcome to your first meeting. They are all like this, all of them, except a lot of them are more towards the evening, they run late, and some people get a lot testier, but this is kind of a mild one. So, yeah. Yeah, if there's any other questions, go ahead and drop them in there. Coming up on 2 hours on this already, so I was gonna dip out here in a bit. I have some like actual work and stuff to do. I screwed up the audio on this a bit earlier because I was like accidentally feeding a delayed version of my own microphone into my headset. So I started like slurring my words as my brain was trying to freak out about it. But I'll work on that. I'm still just moved, so I'm still setting up my like workstation and whatnot, and my stream deck and all that, and things are a little kind of weird. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe, like, all that, etc., etc. I'm going to keep doing my Democratic Party meetings on this and try and do more government meetings like this. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you set up notifications so you know when I go live. And I will see you folks the next time that this happens. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.